Good afternoon and good morning to everyone that has joined us today. So, as always, we're just going to leave it a minute or so just to let everyone join, settle in, grab a coffee if it's morning for you guys, or actually maybe grab a coffee if it's the afternoon. So, it's great to see you all here today. And I do have my favourite presenter with me today. I shouldn't say it all the time, should I, Rick?
Well, I'll take all the flowers I can get.
Actually, yeah, we all need to be a bit more positive in life, don't we? So I think no, it's all good. So we'll just leave it just another few seconds, as I said, just allow everyone to join us. Okay.
Melanie,
I
how
hope-
while we're waiting for everyone to join us, how's the weather out in the UK?
Oh my God. So I think we're lucky. I think because I live in Essex, which is just outside London, and the southwest of the UK has had tornadoes, has had horrendous like weather. So I think we've just been hit. Literally at 3 o'clock, it said it was going to come. So now we've got a bit of wind. So we're in hindsight, we're lucky compared to some of the rest of the UK, but it's horrendous. You know what, people outside the UK think of British weather today is grey, dark, it's but where you are, you've got a bit of rain, haven't you, Rick? So
Yeah, I'm actually here in sunny Barcelona, but today it's not so sunny. So it's actually raining as well. I think some of that British weather has come down to the warm Barcelona area.
oh, I'm sorry. I apologise. But hey, right, so shall we start then, Rick? So we're talking today, is HR and payroll tech ready for the future of work? I think it's a really important topic. It's a topic that we talk about within the GPA a lot, about tech and about the future. And there's so many interesting things happening at the moment. So thank you for joining us today. And just to introduce Rick. Rick, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone?
Sure. So, Rick Hamill, author and founder and investor in HR tech. I have been in HR since the start of my career, and I'm extremely passionate about HR and really the future of work and where HR is going, especially in the remote world that we live in, and so remote and global world that we live in. And so I'm always enjoying these type of conversations and really thinking about how HR is going to transform, how technology is going to enable that, and thank you again, Melanie, for having me on.
No problems. Right. So Zoom sometimes really works well for me on these webinars, and sometimes it it might not. So bear with me, and hopefully everything will run nice and smoothly. So Rick, so what's today's webinar really about?
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about the future of work, and I thought we should start with the foundation of how are people defining the future of work, and how they're defining is the future of work is a projection of how workers, and workplace will evolve in the years ahead. And so we've started to talk about this a lot more after COVID, since the world and the workforce has changed in the global market. And so as we kind of think about technology and how it's evolving to really support if that's remote work, if that's hybrid work environments, DEI, inclusion. This is what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be thinking about what that means from a future perspective, what technology is thinking about, how they're going to do it, what's trending. But most important, I want to make sure we cover what customers are looking for, how they're thinking about their technology, and what the customer actually needs to make sure they're enabling their organizations for what we call the future of work. So the quote here you see on the screen is from Sherm, but as I Googled it and I chat GPT'd it and I went on every kind of, I wanted to really define what people were saying. This was probably the best summary of what it is. It's defining really what the future is going to be as the workplace evolves over time.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to have our first poll question. So we do like our webinars to be as interactive as possible. And Zoom has done its usual stuff of updating its software for me just for today. So I did have a little panic, but I found it. So with the future of work and technology, what a brilliant example. But here we go. So our first poll is: do you believe HR and payroll technology is ready for the future of work? So I'm going to launch this now. And I have like my magic number of people that I like to fill in the polls. So thank you for participating.
And Melanie, where do you think it's going to end? Where do you think most people will think? Do they think that HR and technology, payroll technology is ready for the future of work? Where do you think it's going to land?
Well, do you know what? I think people are going to say no. Um, it's a really hard one because you hear so many different bits of feedback from our members or just people within our community. And there's some vendors or providers or technology people that are maybe going too fast, or there's some that are too slow. It's there's no, what's the word? Medium. There's no balanced. And I think that maybe affect people's opinions. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think as you define the future of work, it really is really based on the industry and the actual business. A lot of technology, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in later slides, but a lot of technology is starting to verticalize how they actually define the future of work and how they're supporting their overall initiatives within their technology. So some technology may be there, some technology may not be. It really may depend on the business. But I'm
Yeah.
actually looking forward to seeing the answers here so we
Okay.
can start the conversation.
So thank you so much. I didn't have to nag to get everyone to fill in the poll, which is superb. So thank you. And here are the results. So it's really close, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. So you got yes, 28%, no, 34%, maybe 29%. I don't know, 9%. So there's nothing outstanding, is there, as a result there?
Yeah, I think it's kind of that hodgepodge that we just talked about, right? It's where industries are going, where technology is going, and really how it's fitting a business. But businesses have changed, right? Some businesses, it's the status quo that's always been. They didn't have a lot of change during COVID or post-COVID. There are businesses that completely evolved during COVID, and then there are businesses that were birthed during COVID and really came up with different opportunities and how they actually manage workforce and payroll. And so I'm not surprised at the answers. It depends on the mix of everyone that's on this call. It's going to show kind of where the world is at. There's three different kind of buckets of where businesses are evolving. But I've got some data points here that we've been able to look up. So let's go to that next slide and talk about it.
So we have actually had somebody that's just put in chat that they've attended an AI summit. So maybe Trevor, you can give us some input when Rick gets to that part of our discussion because it'd be good to hear what you learn from it. So anyway, sorry, Rick, I'll let you carry on.
No, absolutely. So some of our polls are showing that HR technology adopters generally find that their HCM platforms are suitable for what their needs in the future. You're seeing organizations like Workday and UKG start to evolve and update their code and update their processes that really focus on supporting remote work. We really saw that a lot of organizations in the past, as we got through COVID, they realized that remote work really works, and they had to figure out how they were going to enable their HCM technology to be able to really support that. So we're actually surprisingly at some of the polls that we've been able to take and through multiple surveys with multiple analysts, we've been able to see that a lot of them actually say this actually works. Now, that's really when you're looking at how they're managing their mature talent modules. What they think that we still need to really focus on is the people analytics, strategic decision making, and greater organizational agility as well. Looking at how we can take what we have today, the data points, but actually evolve that to really allow us to make decisions from an HR perspective. You know, it's only been a few years where HR evolved from the people's department or the personnel department to really the people that are sitting at the table and helping make business decisions. I first and foremost believe that HR has to be at the table. And so we have to enable HR with the right technology and the tool to be able to pull data from their HCM platforms to be able to do that. And I think that you're finding a lot more organizations are okay with how they currently manage their workforce, but they really need that analytics to really make sure that they're supported for success. So there's still involvement that we're going to have to see in many HCM technologies on how they're actually working on that. We're also seeing from a poll that we did earlier before as well, is that you don't really see a lot of people looking to replace their HCM platforms at all. But what they're looking to do is look at how they can actually add to that. So if that's talent engagement, if that's which is like your learning and development, your recruiting, performance management, Benefits is a big one as well, especially after COVID. We've seen a surge in benefits requirements from employees and talent. They preferred more of the benefits than compensation. Compensation tools as well. With remote work, we had to figure out how to really make sure that we're being competitive in the marketplace. So HR professionals are saying that they need to see that type of talent there, or that type of tools and analytics and the systems as well. Time and attendance, because type of status of work employment is full-time, part-time, gig work. They have to figure out how they're looking and managing their employees and their staff in that. And again, all the analytics tools that are behind that to take everything that we just mentioned in an HCM platform and actually involve in that. So HR professionals are 53% of the people that we've pulled in the past are saying they absolutely need to see the addition to HCMs. They're not going to change their platforms, but they want to see their HCM platforms evolve. And then outside of that is the integration component of that. Every business is different. We're talking about how every business needs certain tools to make sure they're set up for success. So ability to work with HCM platforms that have integrations is key because not everybody uses the same platforms, not everyone uses the same apps, but they do want to bring those things together in harmony to help really run their business and make sure that the data flows, is synchronized. So you're finding that making sure that they keep their technology, but really evolving that into integration and third-party tools is going to be really important from that perspective. Were there any questions on that? Do we need questions pop up on this?
No, we've just had at the moment just a lot of people saying how wet it is in the UK, unfortunately. We have got one about AI. So I think we should wait for, I think AI is going to be a big subject. But one thing which would be good to hear from people from the payroll side. So you've got the integrating third-party solutions. So what we've come across from the payroll side is that when the HCM is being implemented or looked at, sometimes the payroll department's forgotten about, and then there's a bit of a scramble. How do you think other departments can start building that relationship to ensure that they're really with the decision making, when they're being looked at, when the HCM's being looked at?
Yeah, I think what you're starting to see that trend as well with some of the consolidation you're seeing in the marketplace. HR, HCM platforms are looking at payroll technology as well because they know that there's a lot of symmetry there as well. I think there was that one acquisition that happened a few months ago, which was UKG and Amidas.
Yeah.
With that, we're starting to see that involvement. Workday is starting to do a lot of integration with third-party platforms as well, payroll platforms, because HR professionals and payroll professionals know that information, they're working in the same data field, they're working in the same information, and they need to be able to have one system for that harmonized kind of analytic and tools. So it's quite important. I think HR professionals need to make sure, and I'm gonna caveat this, Melanie, as well. I think HR and payroll are both the same. It's the same department. There's certain nuances, but it's still people, right? You're still managing people and people data and how we're actually making sure their overall experience. But bringing them into one solution, if it's through integrations or having one actual platform that does that, it's quite important to organizations because they don't want to have multiple systems where they have to enter multiple information. They want to have that one pane of glass where they can see how they're onboarding employees, the analytics behind it, how compensation is being managed, and how they're actually retaining that talent in the system as well. So I think it's really important that we bring them together, we make sure that we're integrated. But a lot of HR technology tools are seeing that right now. They're seeing the requirement for that, which is why you're seeing some of the consolidation in the marketplace today.
And do you feel that if COVID hadn't happened, do you think we would be where we are now with tech? Or do you think COVID has really pushed it forward like 5, 10 years?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the answer will be yes. I think COVID obviously expedited any innovation that we would have had, given that the world has changed and we had to figure out how to navigate in that world. I think we were headed there, but I just had this conversation the other day. Um, Before COVID, we were talking about remote work or work from home a couple of days, and we were just now talking about getting employees laptops, and that was the innovation at that time. That seems like a decade ago now, as we kind of talk. Everyone has laptops, everyone's working from that. We're not really seeing desktops in the workplace as much as we used to. So yes, absolutely, COVID pushed kind of the innovation in definitely 10 years, I would say, from that perspective.
Okay, and don't forget, if you have any questions for Rick, please feel free to add them in the chat. Okay, so we've got our next poll question. So let me get this together. Bear with me. It's really bizarre how they've done this.
We were just talking about technology innovation.
I know. They've hidden the button. There was always a button for polls. Now they've hidden it. Anyway, right. So our second poll, which of the following HR and payroll technology trends do you think will have the most significant impact on the future of work? Artificial intelligence, AI and machine learning, employee self-service portals, mobile apps for HR and payroll, data analytics and reporting, blockchain for payroll security, chatbots for employee support. And if there's anything else, can you please add it in the chat? So if there's something else that you thought of that we haven't added on there, please add those. So I've just launched the poll, so hopefully everyone can see that. Rick, what do you think is going to be the answer to this one?
I think AI is going to come up. It's the trend right now. It's the hot topic. Funny enough, I was in a country, two countries, 2 weeks ago, where AI, like ChatGPT and things like that, have been kind of blocked. You can't use those things in those particular countries.
Oh,
And so, how those particular countries are going to evolve and HR technology tied to the, how the rest of the world is evolving is interesting to me. But I think AI is going to be number one. But I think what's also really important is the employee experience, and how employees leverage platforms and their onboarding experience, how they review their pay slips, how they make changes themselves. I think that's also going to be very key, from that perspective as well. So those are probably my top two um, suggestions or answers.
yeah. So I feel like my world, because we're traveling around Asia, or Dubai, Sydney, and Singapore, and I feel like my world has been taken up by AI because it was a huge topic everywhere I went. So thank you so much for everyone that has answered. I'm just gonna stop the poll in a couple of seconds. So thank you to that person who just quickly answered. Thank you very much. Oh, you're doing it. So, okay, I'm going to stop it now. Thank you. It's like we had a few people rush then. Right, okay. So it is what we thought it was going to be. So 67%. Um, blockchains, that's nothing. Chatbots, 6%.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Right now AI is the talking point right now, and I think it's not just. I think sometimes AI is, oh my God, AI is going to take our jobs. I don't think that's the case, right? I think AI is really progressing, and supporting how technology is actually enabling and giving more insights to how users are actually leveraging platforms, how their overall experiences. I think we have to keep getting back to the employee experience, the client experience, and leveraging these platforms. I think AI can help enable that. I think there's also usage and what's important to the overall end user, and how do you maximize that, and you can leverage AI to really dive into that to help you understand that from that perspective. But for me, AI and employee experience always ties in together, because you want that, especially when you're talking about remote work and the kind of the future of work. You've got to think about how we're actually leveraging and bringing talent together, making sure that you're building on cultures, and trying to do that through technology. So I'm not shocked at all here, Melanie, at those results. Love to get your opinion on that.
Yeah, well, a couple of weeks ago, so I do like playing about with ChatGPT, just the geek in me. And one of our presentations whilst we're in Dubai, Diana from OPS, she did a demo of how she uses ChatGPT just to run some reports and just some of the pay reports that the board may ask for. Obviously, she doesn't put the real data in, but she changes it slightly, and it was just amazing how something that would take her 4 hours took her 60 seconds, but just being aware of the data you're putting in. And I just think, wow, there's that side of you where you, instead of doing laborious, boring jobs, maybe AI can help you do those sort of jobs so you can focus on other things that are maybe more important. Not saying that reports to your board isn't important, but however, you know, so I just think there's a lot there, and I'm still learning about it. So, but it is really interesting. And I love what after I saw the demo, I just wanted to like log in and just play about with it just to really see what you can do. We got a couple of questions. Are you okay to um How
Yeah.
do you see payroll adapting to digital workers working alongside us humans? Digital workers will have to be taxed at some point.
Yeah, I'm not a tax expert to this, but I always jokingly say that Uncle Sam is always going to figure out, and depending on where Uncle Sam is around the world for you guys, is always going to figure out how to get tax from that perspective. I think we have to look at kind of what that means and how regulations are going to adapt to this. You're seeing um, digital work, the remote work. You're seeing some countries really adapt and dive really into it. You're seeing some countries really run from it and put some strict regulations behind it. So I don't know. I'm really sitting on the sidelines and kind of looking at what that looks like. Like I said, just a few weeks ago, I was in a country where they're abstinent, they're pushing back on it completely and really blocking opportunity there. And other components, I see another question here when we talk about, the access to data and possibly being hacked behind this. I think it's really important that as we continue, like anything that we innovate or we grow, we've got to do it consciously and safely. And I think we've got to have some, kind of idea of what we're going to do and how we're going to share that information. What information does these type of platforms have access to? So I think there's some meaning behind what you're saying, that it can be a little scary, right? There's access to that much information. There's reasons why we've had situations like GDPR and other data privacy rules come in, because people want to make sure that their data is confidential and held privately. But we also understand, as you just mentioned, Melanie, as well, the massive amount of work that can get done in matter of minutes and a lot faster. So there's pros and cons to it all. I think we just have to think about it safely and how we're going to continue to advance at it. But there's got to be some real regulation behind it. There's got to be some management behind it. We've got to be able to expand safely. I think that's going to
Yeah.
be really.
Because there's a summit this week I think it's in the UK, just with all the leaders talking about AI and the future. So, it's a hot topic. We've got another question. How do HCM systems protect the data sets to avoid bias of all kinds, or do you think AI-driven systems can be fairer than humans with all the inbuilt pre-prejudices? Sorry.
Yeah, I think there's a point to technology, right? There's advantages to that. There are some components that you're going to have to. I'll give an example of how we're building out our technology as well. So we believe in AI. We believe that's access, but we control what AI is. So we've centered in what data points that our analytics tools are going to query. We make sure that we validate that information. We give access only to information that we want. We're not allowing it to go completely to the World Wide Web, because we also understand that not everything out there is correct. And we want to make sure we're creating a safe environment for how our system operates. I can't talk to other HCM platforms, but the best practices is making sure that you have a controlled environment of how that information goes out, and there's a way to validate it. I've seen a number of systems where they caveat that this information may not be correct. So they're all, as I always say, when you use AI, how they're leveraging it, it's also very important to ask your HCM provider how they're building it, how they're supporting it, how they're querying it, to be able to make sure that they're doing it the right way. But everyone's doing it a little bit different. But the one thing about it is it's so new. Everybody is learning how to navigate it. Everyone's trying to figure out the rules behind it. And that goes from technology organizations that's building on it. You're looking at government bodies who are trying to regulate it. We're all trying to make sure we're doing it in a safe environment, in a safe way, to make sure everyone's set up for success.
Yeah. Are you okay for one more question and then we'll move on?
Sure.
This is from John. Seeing an increase by states in the US on taxing employees where they are working and tracking where income, e.g., bonuses, were earned, commonly referred to as training liabilities. Are you seeing HCM systems are being changed, modified to accommodate this tracking?
Yeah, absolutely. You're definitely seeing that because of how remote work did. When people are where they work and actually where they live, where they're commuting, that's not just in the States, it's also outside of the States. We have to look at some of those things. And I think there's the A1 visas as well in Europe, where someone may work for a couple of days or hours in certain countries. If they don't have a tax treaty between their countries, there's an income that's earned from that perspective as well. So technology is having to adapt to that based on these new rules and regulations that are coming out. Unfortunately, as you know, with technology, Melanie, the second you release new code, it's old. And so it's always a step behind, but I think that these are some of the things that all technology right now is looking to make sure they understand. And this actually gets back to AI. This is why it's so important. And you just said this earlier, Melanie, where something that may have taken days now can take hours. Technology, AI in particular, can really help with helping us learn a lot faster so we can build code, and based on where we're going as a world and a overall culture. So I think it's quite important that we leverage those things, but definitely technology is evolving to really comply with the rules and regulations of the different governments as well.
I think we're in that sort of world where it's pretty exciting, isn't it? We're at that change in life, where they'll look back in 50 years' time and go, COVID was like a point, and then technology and everything changed and we've moved forward. I think we're quite lucky to see all of this change. I do feel old because I remember using fax machines, running around using a fax machine, and now we've got AI. So it's all good. So the next gen HCM tech. So tell us more about this then, Rick.
Yeah, so what we're finding is that a lot of HCM kind of their focus is really being cloud first. I remember when HCM was very much desktop based. So being cloud first, so that there's enabled access around the world from there and making sure they comply with data privacy rules and regulations. We're seeing the integration layer. I think it's really important. I talked about giving more flexibility, understanding their core systems and what they're offering, but allowing multiple system integrations to really enable their ability to run their business. Focus on your business first is what you're seeing from that perspective. I keep getting back to the employee experience. That's been really important, especially with the change of remote work or hybrid work. They want to make sure they have employees that are engaged. We've seen many stories out there, many case studies where remote employees weren't as engaged. So technology, especially HCM technology and payroll technology, is focusing on how we can make sure those employees can be engaged, and make sure that they understand that they're still part of the organization. And then also when you look at the overall suite of HCM modules, it's how to make sure that it's clear, it's functional, it's accessible, to employees, and users, to make sure that data is flowing correctly, right? We no longer want to be, you just said, the fax machine. We don't want to be in the fax machine era anymore. We want to make sure that if we put something in a platform, we want to make sure that data flows across the business accordingly, so that we don't have to have duplicity from that perspective. And then the core HR component of systems, that the foundational piece, I like to call core HR the foundational piece. Those are things that you're still seeing businesses make sure that they have, because we still have to run and HR and payroll departments, but we're layering that to make sure that we're making it a lot more sophisticated for businesses to operate across the globe.
Do you think the younger generation is sort of pushing the employee experience, because now everything is on a phone, isn't it? Or you get information just like that now, can't you? So do you think it's a generational thing that's pushing the employee experience?
Yeah, I'm gonna date myself when I say this, but I remember those days when we had flip phones, and the phones that we have today and the phones that we live on are much more powerful than the computers that we had back in those days. And so, yes, I think HCM and payroll technology is looking at how to enable those like overall experiences, and looking at how people actually leverage technology in their everyday lives. And so, how to bring those individuals back into the fold? How do you make sure that they're supportive? We're seeing that the first thing you do when you wake up in the morning is check your phone. Now, imagine from an HR perspective, there's a message from your HR leader or your CEO. That's the first thing you can see when you have a notification come up on your phone. They're looking at ways to make sure they're communicating with their talent across the globe. And in many cases, we're starting to see even more localization to that as well, making sure that it's not just in English, or making sure it's in a standard language. They're looking for ways to make sure they're engaging employees through that and those particular layers at all times.
And I suppose just going back to AI, with the multiple languages, again, that's going to potentially help on that side as well, with being able to translate. So we have the payroll operating models. So they require modern capabilities to scale. Do you want to talk us through this?
Yeah, so here, we talked a little bit about the mobile first. I'm not gonna read all this, but I'm happy. I know we can share this at a later
Yeah.
time. Um, you know, that experience is really important. So a lot of HCM platforms and payroll platforms are trying to look at how we can get employees engaged through apps. There is a lot of work, if I can be very honest, that needs to be done in the marketplace for mobile apps for payroll and HCM. I've seen some okay ones and I've seen some really bad ones, but I haven't seen one that's really dynamic at this particular stage. But I think that you're starting to see some evolution and some people putting some investment into that. How do we look at onboarding through a mobile app? How do we look at notifications? How do we make sure that employees get informed if it's pay changes or reminders that they need to make sure that they do? We're starting to see how that information is visible to employees and even clients through their mobile apps. Navigating compliance, I think, is really important. There's something someone asked earlier, is like where someone's working, and actually where they're supposed to be working if they're more of a remote or nomad employee. There's some GPS information that I've seen that in HCM platforms that are now engaging employers to say, hey, this is where employees are at based on where their app is actually locating them through GPS. We're also seeing even more change in how payments are being issued to employees with the increase in virtual bank accounts, going from checks to virtual bank accounts, and actually accessing that, making sure there's integrations with platforms like PayPal or Stripe and other platforms that allow instant payments to employees. We're also seeing that this traditional weekly, biweekly, semi-monthly, or monthly payrolls are also being changed. Some employees, especially the younger generation, are going to daily payrolls, and so technology is having to adjust to that and make sure that they have access to those earned wages from that perspective. With all that money movement as well, making sure you're compliant with anti-money laws as well, making sure that you're compliant, so that you're seeing a lot of integrations with organizations like Clear and Remit, KYC type organizations. And then automation is really important. That the days of manual processes. Now this, I'm going to date myself again here, Melody, when I say this. I remember in HR when someone would come in and you would hand them a stack of paper and say, please complete all your onboarding paperwork. That's not the world we live in today. We live in a world that we're looking to make sure that it's automated, it's quick, it's something that we can scale very quickly. We can have mass onboardings, mass offboardings if need be, but it's done through an automated platform. And so you're seeing more and more of that. How do we make sure that we take an onboarding process that may have taken a couple hours to a couple of minutes, and you're seeing to see a lot of innovation in that as well. And then again, predictive analytics as well. You're really starting to see organizations look at how do we make sure that we're creating great experiences? How do we know that we're going to get this talent to stay longer? How do we look at these things? And there's a lot of data points that they're able to get based on data points from historical data and also how they're storing and running that in their HCM. And that's allowing them to really look at trends and leveraging that for how they're going to manage payroll in the future. And then again, the one thing that I love talking about is global expansion. How are they expanding in new countries, and how are they making sure that they have that information readily available to them without the days of taking months to set up a payroll in a particular foreign country? Now they can do it in a matter of days.
Yeah, there's so many topics on here that we could do a whole conference on. When we talk about analytics, we're always talking about how to get the payroll leader or the payroll department, on the table with the board. And one of the things that we've discussed on many, many occasions is, payroll data. Payroll has so much valuable data to their hands, or available to them, that they can report on. Sorry. And I think technology is going to help so much more to be able to report on it, understand trends, and the payroll job. Tell me if you think I'm wrong on chat. Will be more analytical. It's definitely going to be changing over the next 5 to 10 years. And my favourite one, whenever we run survey, compliance keeps people awake at night. And especially again, if you're moving into new territories, new countries, if you're processing payroll maybe in one or two countries, and then obviously you might be getting told that you've got to employ somebody in China, for example, there might be a few sleepless nights there. So again, technology is going to help with
Yeah,
that.
Melanie, what was really interesting about I'm very, as you know this, I'm very passionate about revolution and really thinking about the future of work and how we take these data points and really build something on top of that. And so there's a question that came in, so where the source of this data came from. This is a hodgepodge of analysts, statistic data, competitor data. We pulled all this information in, and one thing that I'm focusing on in my new venture is building something that's going to really streamline the overall experience through technology. So as we think about this, and you'll hear more about that new venture in 2024, our technology that we're focusing on is taking these data points and looking at how do we make sure that we give access to our clients through technology this information, and simplify their overall global expansion, how they actually manage their HR workforce management platforms. And so we're super excited about taking this information and continue to do more work with other analyst groups, and also what we call our ICPs meaning our ideal customer profiles, and gathering this information, not just from a US perspective, but we're looking at this globally. And we're running a lot of sessions and getting this information from many companies and individuals who are working on this on a day-to-day basis. So this will continue to grow and evolve, because we're doing these quite often, to continue to grow and understand really what the market's looking for, so we can really make sure we're building on the future of work.
So when on my travels a couple of weeks ago, we talked about earned wage access, and again, you've got the people that are happy about it and people that aren't so happy about it. So it's a really interesting conversation to have. But what I do agree or believe is it's changing the way people are being paid. And so they're saying, people are wanting to get paid daily. It's maybe getting paid weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly is slightly old-fashioned now, or will it be seen as old-fashioned in 4 or 5 years' time? So I think earned wage access has put, is it the cat amongst the pigeons? I think it's changing the way that we're looking at paying people.
Yeah, it's evolving, and I think we have to pay attention to that as HR and payroll professionals. What is our talent looking for now? There's pros and cons with that, and you're having to build technology around that to make sure payroll is not something that typically can be done in just minutes, right? So looking at that on a daily basis, that can be cumbersome in the way that technology is built out today. But we as you're starting to see that evolve, it's really important that we look at technology. How do we simplify that overall? Understand the complexity behind it. There are quite a number of countries though that are not up to date with that. So there, as you already know, with wage access, earned wage access, you're seeing that there are countries that are pushing back and saying, no, you can't do that, you need to stay within these pay cycles, because it actually impacts from a tax perspective those individual employees. So we've got to figure out how to do it, not only through technology but through also regulation, and how do we support that and make sure we understand that as time progresses.
So there's another one to watch this space. So we've got a question. How far are we from single source of truth for payroll stroke employee data, e.g. tagging information to a unique identifier with employment history, references, taxes, etc., to streamline or onboarding verification, good and bad?
Yeah, I don't think we're that far off, but I'm going to caveat that by saying it really depends on the country. So if we look at, there are countries that are very much moving in technology, and in particular countries that are doing that and moving very quickly by it. But when you look at it from a global scale, that aggregate kind of methodology, it's not as simplistic. And so there are ways that you're seeing organizations and technologies go that direction. I would say to perfect it, and there's really no such thing as perfection, but to get close enough to perfection, I say we're probably a good 5 to 7 years away from that. But that's really looking at what I'm seeing in the marketplace today. But it's again, it's really going to be on a country by country basis and how we aggregate that, because as we think about technology and where we're going, on the flip side of that, you're also seeing countries pull back on technology and regulate that, and kind of stop that growth. So you may be able to do in certain regions and not others. And that's something that we've got to think about. And that's when it gets back to regulation. How do we make sure that we understand our lawmakers, support our lawmakers, and let them understand why this is important to businesses and business success, and kind of how we're operating.
Yeah, so I'm going to move on, but we had a meeting in Ireland, and we were discussing earned wage access, that you need to have the option to provide this for France and Spain, and people were quite surprised. So again, compliance regulation, so you need to be like, have a Wikipedia in your head, don't you really? Okay, so our third poll, how prepared do you believe your organisation is to adapt to the changing landscape of work and HR and payroll technology? So let me just launch this one. What do you think is going to be the answer to this one, Rick?
Oh, this is always a good one. I would say it's somewhat prepared is what people are going to say. Let's see. Somewhat, what about you?
Um, I I would say, yeah, somewhat prepared or neutral.
I agree. I agree. I don't think we're there. There's a lot of change going on, and a lot of companies are adapting. And one thing that, as this is being answered, I think we have to remind our leaders as well that those budgets that, this is budget season now. So as we talk about budgets for 2024, there has to be investment into that as well. Again, sometimes HR is not always seen, HR and payroll is not always seen as a priority. And I think it's really important that our HR leaders and payroll leaders really make sure that they take this information from these type of webinars and these data points and bring them to their senior leaders and their executive meetings to let them know why this is important, how this is going to actually impact their businesses.
Yeah. Okay, so I've just got my magic number. If you haven't answered the poll, could you uh, just spend 1 second just to answer it, please? But we got a pretty good number, if I'm being honest with you. So I'm just going to stop it in a couple of seconds. So thank you, whoever just answered that. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to stop it now. Okay, so there you go, somewhat prepared.
Somewhat prepared. Yeah, I would love to hear from you guys on how, why do you think that we're somewhat prepared, and what do we think we need to do to get prepared for this? I think it's really important that we share that forum and we talk about that constantly. It's something I love to talk about in webinars, but I also encourage HR and payroll professionals to always bring that up. I talk a lot on LinkedIn. I know, Mel, you see all the posts that
It's
I talk
good.
about this. I think it's important that we share kind of these experiences with each other to ensure that we learn from each other from that perspective. It only helps us be more prepared.
Yeah, it's an interesting topic, isn't it? Because I've stopped it now, but I don't think there was anybody that said very prepared. I don't think I saw anybody that said that. So,
Yeah, they're 7%. They
oh,
had
was it
7%.
7%? So that's
Yeah,
7%. That's good. So why? What have they done differently to be so prepared?
yeah,
So
yeah, I would love to learn that as well. Like we're very prepared. Let's learn. We can learn from it. Let's talk about it. But most organizations are going to say somewhat prepared because there's also an unknown behind that as well, Mel. And I think that that's where we have to figure out. I think where you're seeing some of the top priorities for some of our big buyers, our buyers for HR and for payroll technology, is they want to, getting back to that employee experience, they want to improve talent management efficiencies. They want to make sure they're supporting, the best workforce management practices, enabling greater HR flexibility and agility, supporting strategic business initiatives. I think that is probably one of the most important things as you think about HR technology and what you're building out for the future of work is how does HR sit at the table? How does payroll sit at the table to ensure that they're building and supporting that business initiatives, those strategic business initiatives? I think that's probably my number one thing that I think you can take away from this is HR needs to be at the table, payroll needs to be at the table, and this talent, the HCM platforms that allow them to do that, allows them to be there.
I've got a couple of comments. Okay, so somewhat prepared. Oh, sorry, just jumped for me. Somewhat prepared. As a technology-driven company, we stay on top of emerging tech in this space. As a remote company, we also have to be aware of the evolving laws for HR in various states.
Hey Cynthia, I know Cynthia. So yeah, I think it's quite important, right? You've got to evolve, but I think it's also once you buy technology, and I think this is something that we all have learned as well. You buy technology and then something else comes out a year later, and then you're like, okay, that's the new thing. How do we make sure that we're looking at it, and how do we make sure that we evolve, and that the companies that we are partnering with through technology, how do we know that they have those initiatives to really support us to make sure that they're going to grow and be agile in their overall approach in supporting their technology infrastructure as well? So I think that's going to be really important. Any other comments that we have?
Yeah, so we have sorry, just so you got the tech guys that are doing the 7%. As a 7%, I work in the area of access as payroll. So payroll and HR consultant. So I'm at the coal face of it. So yeah, if you're a tech guys, come on. You I'd hope you would be in the 7% there. Think, is that slightly cheating? I don't know. And then we have another one. A lot of the time a lot of the time it's a cultural shift and moving away from this is how we've always done it. Yeah, so I've heard a lot of this is how we've done it just recently. The tech is ready, it exists, and many progressive organizations invest into shared services models, HR, payroll, finance integration. And it has a marked impact of efficiency, agility, and informing company strategy. Change can be scary. So this, Jamie, that's a really good comment. We've discussed this a lot over a lot of our face-to-face symposiums. And I think that's always been a challenge for payroll and HR. Change, people are scared of change. However, can I just be devil's advocate there? Sometimes when people have gone to change, they've been really burnt. And in some cases, I know where people have lost their jobs. So there's an element where people are scared of change, and there's an element where people just don't want to change. They're happy where it is. So how do we get over that hurdle? Because we need to move the business forward.
Yeah, there has to be conversation behind it. There has to be alignment from a business perspective. Change is hard, and there has to be a methodology behind it. I like to call that business organization readiness. I think it's really important. So as you make decisions, it can't just be an overnight decision, right? You have to make sure that it's thought out methodically, and sometimes it's baby steps, right? You sometimes have to run slow, walk slow to be able to run fast in the future. So it's really thinking about it, seeing how you can get buy-in from it, making sure that from the top to the mid to the bottom of the organization that everyone's aligned and understands the overall goal. I use this analogy many times, which is that North Star. If you're in a boat and you're going north, and you're supposed to be going north in your trajectory, but someone wants to go east and someone wants to go west and someone wants to go south, what you're going to do as an organization is spin. And that's where you see failure in that overall approach. You have to be able to make sure that everyone's aligned, make sure they understand what those goals are, and then also test those goals behind it, but then go together. And sometimes what you see is it's HR, payroll want to go this direction, and then you may see finance want to go a different direction. We need to have alignment, and that's where I keep getting back to how HR and payroll needs to be at the table, and there has to be a buy-in from the top, from the senior leadership team to make sure that that's the initiative that they want to do as well, and that's how you're going to set someone up for success, especially when they want to make that change.
Yeah. So, hi, Helen. I haven't spoken to you for a long time, but good to see you on here. Companies that are already on the ball with tech and data are probably ready to move forward. Most clients I work with need a HR payroll transformation system, process structure, etc., before they can even consider some of these advancements. So I
Yeah,
suppose it's, as you said, getting your house in order.
yeah, it's making sure business transformation is not easy. If it was easy, everyone would be doing it successfully, and many people fail at it. But you have to make sure that you think about it methodically. I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this with a lot of passion. Have a plan. You must have a plan and how you're going to execute it. I've made many mistakes in that in my past as well. It's making sure that everyone's bought in, everyone's going, and what that looks like. And it doesn't mean you have to do it overnight. You have to have buy in from everyone. You have to have milestones to test it, and then you can execute as you are successful through those milestones.
And I think from a sort of on the payroll perspective, when we've spoken about this at conferences, it's the payroll leaders or the payroll department getting out there networking, getting out there, getting to know the different departments, building relationships, to really get to know what everyone's looking to do in the future. And I suppose it's like a normal relationship, isn't it, really? Just talking, communicating.
Yeah, Mel, I'll have to give you guys some flowers over there. GPA, you guys have the ability to really help navigate that with payroll. You guys kind of have a full kind of view of what's out there, and some of the war stories. And I think that some of those conversations that when people engage you guys, you can actually help them navigate that because you've heard those stories. And so what not to look for, not what to look for and what not to look for, and to make sure that they come up with those plans, I think can be really helpful. I've seen, a number of clients talk about how powerful that has been working with you guys behind that, but also making sure that you have the right partner. So when you choose change, you choose a new vendor, it's really important that you hold them accountable to that. So as you're negotiating through your contracts, look at your SLAs, look at how they're going to make sure they're giving you guarantees of service delivery and execution, and making sure that they are held accountable behind that too. There has to be some skin in the game from your provider. If they're promising that they're going to make change and make your life better, what are they putting in their agreement? How are they making sure they're holding themselves accountable to that as well? So it's there's a number of approaches that you can take, and like I said, they can definitely reach out to you, or feel free to reach out to me. I've made many had many successes and also many failures behind that, and I've got a lot of war stories that I can talk about in choosing and trying to do business transformation in my past as well.
And Jamie said, and talk to reference customers who've also gone through the same transformation. That's so critical. I have to agree with you there, Jamie. And one of the things that we do suggest is talk to the network. Ask if your network have already worked with the provider. Really try and find out as much as you can from your payroll and HR network. Just reach out and ask for people's opinions. I think it goes a long way. And we find that with our membership group, actually, we get a lot of people asking whether or not people have experience with certain providers. And you'll hear the good and you'll hear the bad. But I think that's the good side of talking to your peers really and understanding what's going on. So
Yeah,
should we
and
oh, sorry,
yeah,
Rick.
Mel, I'll also add to that as well. When you ask for references that have had an issue with that provider before, and not just someone that they're going to. But every tech company, everybody that's trying to sell, are going to give you their best references, the one that's had the best experience with you. I think it's really important to ask for the ones that had a bad experience and how they were able to resolve that for you. That's I think will be a little bit more honest and kind of that overall experience. And I've seen when I've done that, I've had better results because I was able to select a vendor based on not so not the best overall service, but how they were able to resolve it. That was really important to me as well.
So I've been enjoying our conversation. I didn't realize what the time's been going fast. So
As always,
are you okay to move on?
yes.
Okay, so I promise this is our last poll question. So what is your biggest concern regarding HR and payroll technology? Data security and privacy, keeping up with technology, employee adoption, training, compliance and regulatory changes, integration with other systems. And can I just ask, does AI worry you as well, maybe? I don't know if that's necessarily the right place to ask that question, but if it does, could you hold on, could you put it in chat? It's not letting me. Oh, it's not letting me launch it. Oh, can you see it?
I don't see it on my side, Mel, but I think
Oh,
we can.
okay. Bear with me 1 second. Let me just see if I can. There you go. Sorry. I don't think you'd want me to develop your technology after after today's. All I've got to do
Well,
is launch polls, Rick.
it's a good end user experience that we should definitely they should document the new user experience.
Or it could be, as my IT guys, it could be the user person, whatever it is. I can't remember what the saying is, but yeah.
Okay.
Okay. What do you reckon on this one?
Let's see. I would say, what comes up a lot is data security and privacy. I think that's going to be really important. Compliance and regulatory changes are coming up. There's a lot of countries that are really pushing down some new rules and regulations that are coming out in 2024. And so those are probably the big ones. Integrations, I think it's important, but really just the security component of it and compliance is, I think, are probably be the two big ones.
Yeah.
What
Okay.
about yourself?
I was going to say data security and again compliance. I feel like I would always answer compliance as a key issue from our side.
Agreed.
Um, So I'm just going to shut it down in a few seconds. So if you can answer, that would be fabulous. Okay, so I'm going to end the poll, and here are the results. So yeah, data security and compliance.
Yeah, it's interesting that, if you had a question about HCM and payroll technology and asked about cost over compliance, you would find in data security, you would find that HR professionals, payroll professionals, and businesses tend to invest into things that they know that are compliant and are secure. And so, I always tell everyone it's not always about going with the cheapest vendor. It's going with someone that you can partner with that that's doing things the right way. And sometimes that's a little bit more money.
Yeah.
But it's such an important, vital component to the future of work. We talk about where the world is going, where how we're going to operate and manage our workforce, and if it's going to be spread, if it's going to be hybrid, if it's going to be fully remote, these things are going to be the most important because we have to make sure it's done right. The great thing about work from home or remote work is that it creates flexibility and a better work-life balance. The scary part about it is it opens up a lot more risk in regards to compliance and regulatory compliance and data security, depending on where those individuals are. And so these are things that people businesses are thinking about, technology is thinking about. How do we make sure we provide services that are really going to help take away some of that risk and make sure that we're fully compliant?
Yeah, you're right, flexibility, but then there's other things. So we're coming up to just 5 minutes left on our today's webinar. Um, Rick, do you want to talk us through this? I think this is the last slide.
Yeah,
Um,
Yeah, this gets back to really just how businesses are also leveraging technology and how to retain and engage employees and again, improve efficiencies. It all gets back to the overall employee experience within the future of work. So we basically we got polls from a number of analyst groups, and we looked at what's actually the most important things, what things that they want they're seeing improvement in, what things that they're actually excited about, and what's actually driving purchasing in certain technologies. And obviously, employee engagement, talent management efficiencies, those are really important. And then again, cost, as I was just mentioning, thinking about how are they managing talent around the world and how that cost is being brought down through technology with efficiencies.
okay, so um, we've got this slide here. So you've got the HCM technology vendor delivery approach. So the sales, engage, deployment, support.
Yeah, this is, and we've talked a little bit about this as well. It's just how organizations are now verticalizing kind of their overall technology approach. And so how technology is, technology is not always made for everyone like it was. We would look at a system 10 years ago and go, I think we all can use this and leverage this. But now because of remote work, how businesses are operating, and what's in that particular industry, you're starting to see technology verticalized. So I think it's really important to, as you're going through the buying and purchase process and looking and partnering with any technology or implementing through payroll, ask what they do, what vertical that they really operate in, what are they successful in, because it may not be the right vertical for your organization, right technology for your organization based on what their actual specialties are. And so we're starting to see more and more of that come up and how they're leveraging. So great technology for key verticals, and then there are some that are not for your businesses. So it's really important that you guys look through this to figure out what's best for your business as you're looking at new technology.
Thanks, Rick. So that's pretty good timing, I would say. If you do have any questions for Rick, you can still add them here and we can speak to Rick afterwards. But just to summarize, I think we've got a few key words here: AI, compliance, employee experience, be organized. And actually, going back, maybe the employee experience should be the biggest one out there, the most important, maybe to you, Rick.
Yeah, I think it's the employee and user experience that are probably most important, and that encompasses a lot of what we talked about from that perspective. But it's really important that we kind of think about that through a technology lens. The future work has to make sure they're engaging employees. So that is what the future of work is to me. It's technology that supports a really an embodied experience for employees and end users.
Well, I think we could have talked a lot more about AI, so maybe that's something that we could potentially look at as running another webinar. Alexandra, I know you asked a few questions which we unfortunately didn't get to answer, so maybe we can have a look at that on maybe one of Rick's LinkedIn Lives or another webinar. But thank you so much. I really do genuinely always enjoy our webinars, Rick, and I love it that people get involved as well. So thank you so much, Rick, for your time today.
The pleasure is mine as always. Thank you, Melanie.
Enjoy Barcelona and everyone in the UK, stay indoors, and we'll see you all again soon. So thank you so much.